pertumbuhan dan kelangsungan usaha, peningkatan loyalitas karyawan, serta insentif pajak.
Government is optimistic that the economy in second quarter to grow 6.9%. Sumber Alvaria Trijaya intends to increase capital through right issue. Good afternoon, viewers. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Wicky Adrian. This is Market Headlines. Government is optimistic that economy will grow in positive zone in second quarter. Better commodity exports and manufacture sector can boost economic growth in the second quarter to reach 6.9%.
The government is optimistic that the economy will be better after recovery trend in the first quarter, which went minus 0.74%. Coordinating Minister for the Economic Affairs, Erlangga Hartarto, explained that economy could grow up to 6.9% in the second quarter of 2021. This optimistic projection is due to the fact that in the second quarter of last year, the GDP constant price figure was reaching 2,589.8 trillion rupiah. So if the GDP at a constant price in the second quarter of 2021 is the same as the first quarter of 2021, then the GDP will jump 5.62%. Thus, the government believes that the growth in the second quarter can reach 6.9 to 7%. Moreover, export and manufacturing performance shows a rapid improvement.
Di Q2 tadi saya jelaskan bahwa pemerintah confident bahwa kita bisa mencapai angka 6,9 sampai di atas 7 karena kita lihat basisnya di Q2 tahun lalu untuk PDB harga konstannya di 2.589,8 apabila di Q1 dipertahankan saja di 2.703 triliun itu kita sudah dapat modal pokoknya 5,6%.
Erlangga further mentioned about rising purchasing managers index that reached 54.6. To him, it is the beginning of industry revival. Several industries have also grown better since April. One of them is retail industry. Jakarta, Rahajo Pakmo for IDX Channel.
Despite the government's optimistic for second quarter economic growth, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry demands the government to seriously encourage small medium enterprises to grow. It is believed that small businesses play a big role to boost the national economy.
The 2021 national economic growth target of 6.9% in the next quarter is responded by Kadin as a possible target. The chairman of Permanent Committee for Export of Kadin, Handito Juwono, demands the government to support small businesses to further upgrade their class. One of the ways is by pushing small businesses to go digital. Local marketplace is the key. It can provide space for small businesses to sell their products. However, government must supervise this marketplace so that the marketplace is not dominated by imported products.
Pengembangan marketplace e-commerce untuk produk-produk Indonesia, khususnya UKM-UKM, perlu mendapat kesempatan, perlu didorong. Demikian juga pengembangan startup untuk e-commerce yang banyak dilakukan oleh anak-anak muda. Hanya saja selama ini memang kita lihat bahwa para UKM kita relatif hanya sekedar dimanfaatkan oleh para pengelola marketplace e-commerce. Setelah mereka berbondong-bondong mengisi merchant dari marketplace, seringkali mereka tidak bisa memanfaatkan bisnisnya dengan baik, dengan berbagai hal, dengan berbagai alasan. Dan akhirnya mereka hanya menjadi penggembira dan seringkali malah jadi pembeli. Dan barang yang dibeli seringkali adalah barang-barang dari luar negeri.
Handito also added, small business actors must also be creative and innovative in developing their products in order to have a good market in e-commerce. Business actors are also required to quickly see the opportunities when the new normal era takes place. From Jakarta, Rizka Ayu, IDX Channel.
Indonesian Railways Company will still operate its long-distance train and local train for Eid al-Fitri's period, but still only passengers with emergency condition that can use the train.
In the period from May 6 to 17, 2021, Indonesian Railways Company will continue to operate 19 long-distance trains and 16 local trains. The Public Relations VP, Johnny Martinez, said that the train that operates is certainly not to serve people who are homecoming, but only intended to serve people who have emergency conditions such as official trips, visiting sick family, pregnant women, accompanied by one family member up to other non-homecoming interests. The permission must be accompanied by certificate from the regional head as well.
PT Kereta Api Indonesia menjalankan kereta api jarak jauh pada periode tersebut bukan untuk melayani masyarakat yang ingin mudik lebaran. Kami mematuhi aturan dan mendukung kebijakan yang diambil oleh pemerintah.
Johnny added, passengers who have emergency needs are required to have a travel permit, negative results of PCR or rapid antigen, and GNOs, which are valid once 24 hours after the results are issued. Long distance and local train ticket for this emergency trip is only 70% of the available seats. Jakarta, Wicky Adrian, the IDX Channel.
Organization of Land Transportation stated that current homecoming ban will bring deep contraction in occupancy rate. If the occupancy rate in normal days is around 30%, then the homecoming ban would likely only reach 10%. Organization of Land Transportation, or Organda, gives appreciation to government that ban homecoming. According to the chairman, Ateng Aryono, the policy can suppress the spread of COVID-19. But in the other hand, it will harm the land transportation sector. The occupancy rate is projected as no more than 10%. It would likely be the same with last year's occupancy rate.
Kalau biasa kemarin sebelum pelarangan ini, paling okupansi angkutan antar kota maupun angkutan kota itu berkisar di 30% dibanding normal ya. Iya. Ketika normal itu hanya okupansi 30% tuh. Itu hariannya seperti itu. Nah, mungkin pada waktu libur ya naik 10% lah sedikit. Nah, Lebaran yang diharapkan mungkin naiknya jadi 20%-an lah kira-kira harapannya begitu, 20-25% gitu ya dari itu. Ya. Enggak terjadi, ya kan? Nah, justru pada posisi ini akan terjadi lebih mengecil lagi karena tadi yang boleh bergerak hanya terbatas.
Market headlines will be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Transisi ke energi baru dan terbarukan tidak membuat industri energi fosil lantas surut. Seperti apa dampaknya terhadap sektor migas?
Turunnya atau rendahnya harga minyak dan gas yang sangat drastis turunnya, adanya pandemi yang membuat terbatasnya pergerakan.
Langkah yang dilakukan apa nih Pak?
Hingga hari ini saya kira Brent hari ini sekitar 55. Ini sesuatu yang positif untuk industri yang itu kira.
Berkah kedamaian Ramadan dengan beragam program spesial IDX Channel. Arjuna, intip keseruan memasak dan perjalanan mencicipi kuliner khas Nusantara bersama Chef Juna. Hadir setiap hari jam 5:30 sore.
Sering. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Rahmatan lil alamin. Siraman rohani bersama Ustadz A'agim yang penuh inspirasi Islami. Setiap hari menjelang azan maghrib. Urban Street Food, referensi sajian berbuka, kuliner pinggiran kota yang menggugah selera, hadir setiap hari jam 6 sore.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Obrolan seputar ekonomi dan bisnis syariah dengan narasumber yang menginspirasi dalam Syariah Economic bersama Ustadz Hilman Fauzi. Setiap hari jam 8 malam.
Kita nggak bisa kabur. Luar biasa ya.
Berkah kedamaian Ramadan hanya di IDX Channel spesial Ramadan.
Karena berdasarkan hasil referendum per 7 Maret 2021, mayoritas masyarakat Swiss menyetujui perjanjian dagang Indonesia.
BNI dengan dukungan Kementerian Pertanian meluncurkan program Millennial Smart Farming.
Warga Amerika yang sudah mendapatkan vaksinasi penuh dapat kembali beraktivitas seperti keadaan normal.
Melihat ini yang menurut saya menjadi sentimen negatif buat di pasar komoditas bagaimana penguasaan untuk menekan harga komoditas.
Welcome back. After reporting economic growth in the first quarter, which was minus 0.74%, the Central Statistics Agency, or BPS, claimed that the trend of economic improvement had begun, as seen from the economic growth data for the previous 3 quarters.
The Central Statistics Agency, or BPS, announced that economic growth in the first quarter of 2021 was minus 0.74% on an annual basis. However, there is a trend of improvement on a quarterly basis. Head of BPS Suharyanto said that economic growth in the first 3 months of this year was better than the previous 3 quarters. In the second quarter of 2020, economic growth was minus 5.32%. In the third quarter, negative 3.49%, and the fourth quarter, minus 2.19%.
Kontraksi kita hanya sebesar tanda-tanda pemulihan ekonomi akan semakin nyata. Dan tentunya kita berharap ke depan apa yang kita harapkan bahwa pemulihan ekonomi akan terjadi di tahun 2021 betul-betul bisa terwujud.
According to Suharyanto, the trend of economic recovery is happening globally, supported by China and the United States. This is reflected in rising commodity prices such as CPO, coal and copper. Apart from that, he said state spending and investment also contributed to the recovery. In the first quarter of 2021, state spending reached 523 trillion rupiah, an increase compared to the first quarter of 2020. In time, the investment realization also rose 2.3% to 219.7 trillion rupiah. IDX Channel team reported.
As data on Indonesia's economic growth has been released, does the data show that the economy has started to improve, or in the economy is still running quite hard? To observe it, let's take a look at these data and more detail through these infographics. The first one is Indonesia's gross domestic product, or GDP growth, year on year in 2020. In the first quarter, of course, it was on the level of it was on the level of 2.97%. Meantime, for the second quarter until the first quarter of 2021, the growth is in the minus zone. For example, in the second quarter of 2020, it was on the level of minus 5.32% and minus 3.49% in the third quarter of 2020. And as I mentioned to you before, the growth of Indonesia's economic in the first quarter of 2021 in the minus 0.74%. Even though the economy experienced contraction of 0.74% year-on-year, BPS saw signs of an increasingly real recovery. Starting from the second quarter of 2020, when the economy was under pressure to minus 5.32%, it started to improve in the third quarter of 2020, which was minus 3.49%. And in the fourth quarter of 2020, the contraction decreased to minus 2.19% year-on-year. Yes, as we can see, the growth in the first quarter this year is quite better than the previous quarters. So as the national economy continues to contract, and what component is the source of the largest contraction? Let's see the next data. This is GDP growth by the type of expenditure: household consumption minus 2.23%, non-profit institutions serving households minus 4.53%, government consumption grew by 2.96%, gross fixed capital formation minus 0.23%. Meantime, for the export grew by 6.74%, import grew by 5.27%. The source of the contraction in first quarter was household consumption, which was minus 2.23% year-on-year and contributed to the contraction of GDP by 2.12%, while in fact household consumption contributed 56.9% to GDP's or Indonesia's GDP structure. Thus, what happened to this component gave tremendous impact to economic growth. Although household consumption was weakened, the other three components of economic growth have been able to grow positively, such as government consumption, export and import. And moreover, not only based on expenditure categories, GDP growth can also be observed from the growth of a number of business sectors. And how is the data? Let's see on the next graphic. This is GDP growth in line of business year-on-year. Agriculture grew by 2.95%. Meantime, for mining and excavation, processing industry, construction, trade and repair, and others, moving in the negative zone. For mining and excavation, for example, minus 2.02%, and processing industry minus 1.38%, construction 0.79 minus, and trade and repair minus 1.23%, and other 0.52%. Agriculture is the leading sector where, based on BPS data, almost all agriculture subsectors are moving positively. This growth is very encouraging considering that 30% of Indonesia's workforce works in the agricultural sector. In addition, BPS revealed that the food crop subsector is the most reliable, as well as a breath of fresh air for the improvement and the national economy, where there has been a increase in rice production and a shift in the planting season at this year's main harvest. And meanwhile, as the development of the economic recovery continues, IMF has issued forecasts for economic growth in 2021 in a number of Southeast Asian countries. And to know more about it, let's see the next graphic. This is real 2020 GDP growth and versus 2021 growth forecasts. And forecast in 2021, all of them are in the positive trend. For Philippines, for example, 6.9%, Thailand 2.6%, and Malaysia 6.5%, Singapore 5.2%, and Indonesia 4.3%, and Vietnam 6.5%. Meantime, for the real GDP in 2020, all of them are negative, except Vietnam. In the 2020 real GDP growth was on the level of 2.91%. And another international institution, the OECD, stated that the increase in the short term will come from improvements in financial conditions, as well as from significant monetary and fiscal policy measures imposed by government. And however, a number of factors are expected to limit demand and investment. In particular, the labor market will remain weak, while the external sector's contribution to the recovery is hampered by the uncertain global economic situation. Public and private debt is also expected to increase. In addition, if the quality of assets in the banking sector deteriorates, banks may not be able to provide adequate support for economic recovery. And finally, inflationary pressure will remain weak due to the ongoing economic downturn. And hopefully, all the efforts for economic recovery will result in optimal economic growth in the following quarters. And of course, it is hoped that the positive impact will be felt by all levels of society. Stay tuned on Market Headlines because we'll be right back after the break.
Assalamualaikum Sobat Milenial, berikut adalah tips untuk mengatur dana THR. Yang pertama adalah menabung sebagian dari dana THR yang diterima. Dengan Anda menyisihkan dana THR untuk ditabung, Anda dapat mencegah pengeluaran yang tidak terkontrol. Kedua, membatasi belanja online. Di tengah Ramadan dan Idul Fitri banyak sekali e-commerce yang menebar diskon di mana-mana. Nah, Sobat Milenial, jangan terjebak. Prioritaskan dana THR untuk kebutuhan utama. Yang ketiga adalah zakat dan sedekah. Anda bisa mengalokasikan 2,5% dari THR untuk zakat fitrah dan sisanya bisa dialokasikan untuk berbagi kepada sesama. Keempat, dana darurat. Di tengah pandemi virus corona, dana darurat dapat menghindarkan kita dari kejadian yang tidak diinginkan. Ya Sobat Milenial, memang menerima THR ini merupakan momen yang ditunggu-tunggu pada saat Lebaran, tapi tetap harus bijaksana dalam penggunaan THR dan harus menggunakan dananya sewajar-wajarnya dan juga jangan boros. Hello, I'm Clara Antawijaya. I'm Associate Producer and News Presenter on Market Headlines. As Market Headlines starts at 4:30 p.m., which is in line with the closing market, therefore we summarize the market conditions only for you. And my job in here as a journalist, I give concise and accurate news for the audience. And also, being a journalist is not only a job for me, but it is also a passion.
Presiden Joko Widodo meresmikan jaringan infrastruktur air bersih SPAM unggulan.
It took a lot of trial and error, banyak kegagalan juga, tapi dengan banyak practice dan akhirnya bisa bikin kue yang lumayan enak. cita-cita saya sih pengen bawa brand ini ke luar negeri ya.
Welcome back. At the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement earlier today, JCI was opened at the level of 5,987.07, and approaching the closing time of the session, the index was on the level of 5,963.47. Then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session closing time. Index was closed at the level of 5,970.24. In short, JCI went down 0.09%. And moving on to top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading session. BBRI went up 0.49% to the level of 4,110 rupiah per share. BRIS went up 6.14% to the level of 242 rupiah per share. And TINS went up 1.07% to the level of 1,885 rupiah per share. Tower went up 4.00% to the level of 1,170 rupiah per share. Meantime, the top losers for today's trading session, we've got ANTM went down 0.38% to the level of 2,620 rupiah per share. Telkom went down 0.31% to the level of 3,190 rupiah per share. And Zinc went down 0.54% to the level of 185 rupiah per share. And Unilever went down 3.9% to the level of 5,550 rupiah per share. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Open at the level of 14,439 rupiah, was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar, and was closed at the level of 14,290. In summary, rupiah went up 0.83%. Sumber Alvaria Trijaya intends to increase its capital through rights issue. The company will issue a maximum of 5 billion shares with a nominal value of 10 rupiah per share.
Sumber Alvaria Trijaya intends to increase capital through the issuance of shares with preemptive rights or a rights issue. The owner of the Alfamart outlet will issue a maximum of 5 billion shares with a nominal value of 10 rupiah per share. Shareholders who do not exercise their rights to subscribe new shares in addition to capital with preemptive rights will be diluted by a maximum of 10.75%. The company will use the proceeds from the issuance of these shares to invest in other companies or to invest in technology-based companies that can synergize strategically with the company to support business activities. Another use of funds is capital expenditures related to the development of company's business activities. To hold this corporate action, the company will seek approval at the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders on May 6, 2021. Meanwhile, the period for implementing the capital increase will be between the date of general meeting of shareholders approval up to a maximum of 12 months. IDX Channel team reported.
And step aside from market condition as coronavirus pandemic takes big role on current economic situation. And here is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel. Postponing your homecoming in this Eid al-Fitri is not only important, but it is protecting your loved ones as well. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening and stay safe.